Commander Jake Morrison stood at the window of the diplomatic vessel, watching the massive station grow larger as they approached. The Galactic Council's headquarters was an impressive sight, a spinning wheel of metal and crystal that housed representatives from over 100 different alien species. After 32 years, he still felt like an outsider every time he came here. "We're being hailed by Station Control," his communications officer called out. "They're directing us to Docking Bay 47, Jake nodded. Bay 47 was in the outer ring, far from the central chambers where the important species kept their ships. It was another small reminder that Earth didn't matter much in galactic politics. Dr. Lisa Hammond joined him at the window. She was Earth's best expert on alien technology, a brilliant scientist who had spent most of her adult life studying the species that ruled the stars. "Do you think they'll actually listen this time?" she asked. "No," Jake said honestly, "but Ambassador Clark will try anyway." The ship docked smoothly, and soon they were walking through the gleaming corridors of the station. Aliens of all shapes and sizes passed them by. Some were humanoid, others were completely different. There were beings made of living crystal, creatures that floated in containment fields, and things that Jake's mind still struggled to understand even after 3 decades of contact. Ambassador Ryan Clark was waiting for them outside the council chamber. He was a young man for such an important position, barely 40 years old, but he had a calm way about him that made people trust him. "They've already started the session," he said quietly. "The Vortak Empire made their demand official an hour ago." "What are they asking for?" Lisa wanted to know everything. "All our colonies in the Tau Ceti system. Complete withdrawal within 7 days. Jake felt his jaw tighten. 3 million people lived in those colonies. They were farmers, engineers, families who had traveled across the stars to build a new life. And the council? They voted in favor. 47-3. Only the smaller species voted with us, and they don't have much power either. They entered the observation gallery and took their seats. Below them, the council floor was a massive circular chamber with representatives arranged in tiers. The most powerful species sat closest to the center. Earth's seat was in the 4th ring, surrounded by other junior members. The Vortak representative was speaking. He was tall and reptilian, with scales that shimmered green and gold under the lights. His voice was deep and filled with contempt. "The human species has had sufficient time to consider their position. Tau Ceti lies within what was historically Vortak space. Long before these newcomers arrived, we are being generous by allowing them 7 days to evacuate." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Nathari representative, a being that looked like living crystal, added their support. "The humans must learn their place. They are children in a galaxy of ancients." Jake watched Ambassador Clark rise from Earth's seat. The chamber didn't even quiet down when he stood. Half the representatives weren't paying attention. "Honored members," Clark began, his voice steady despite the disrespect. "Earth has been part of this council for 3 decades. We have followed every law, honored every treaty, and contributed our share to galactic defense. The colonies in Tau Ceti were established legally, with proper surveys and claims filed according to council procedures. Procedures that we never truly approved," the Vortak shot back. "Your claims were processed by junior administrators, not by this council. We choose not to recognize them." "Then what good is the law?" Clark asked. "If the powerful can simply ignore procedures when it suits them, what protection do any of us have?" The Krell Dominion representative, speaking with the unified voice of their hive mind, answered him. "Protection comes from strength, human. Your species has little of it. You have 47 warships. The Vortak have over 300 in this sector alone. These are the facts that matter." Clark looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various representatives. Most looked away or showed no emotion at all. "Then Earth requests 1 week to consider our response. We will give our answer in 7 days." "There is nothing to consider," the Vortak said. "Evacuate or be removed by force." The session ended shortly after. Jake, Lisa, and Clark made their way back to the ship in silence. Once they were safely aboard and away from the station, Clark finally spoke. "Set course for Earth maximum speed." The journey home took 3 days. Jake spent most of that time reviewing their military options. The numbers were terrible. Even if they gathered every ship Earth had, they would be outnumbered 6-1. The Vortak had better weapons, better shields, and centuries more experience in space warfare. When they arrived at Earth, A shuttle took them directly to Geneva, where the United Earth Defense Committee was waiting. The meeting room was deep underground, in a facility that had been built during the early years of contact, when humanity wasn't sure if the aliens were friendly or not. President Amanda Foster sat at the head of the table. She was a practical woman who had led Earth through some difficult years. Next to her was General Ben Carter, the head of Earth's military forces. His face was grim. "We've been reviewing the situation," the president said once everyone was seated. "General Carter believes we can't win a conventional fight." "We can't," the general confirmed. "Even if we fought perfectly, we'd lose. And they know it. So we surrender?" someone asked. "We just abandoned 3 million people?" "No," President Foster said firmly. "We don't surrender. But we need to be smart about this." The room fell quiet. Then a woman's voice spoke from the far end of the table. "What about nightfall?" Jake turned to see Dr. Sophie Yang, the director of one of Earth's most classified research programs. He had heard rumors about her work but never knew the details. President Foster looked at her for a long moment. "That was meant to be a deterrent. Insurance we would never actually use. But it works?" General Carter asked. "It works," Dr. Yang confirmed. "We've tested every component. The platform is ready." "What platform?" Jake asked. "What is Nightfall?" Dr. Yang stood and activated a holographic display. What appeared made Jake's breath catch. It was enormous. A weapon platform unlike anything he had ever seen. The design was strange, combining human engineering with something that looked almost organic. 15 years ago, Dr. Yang explained, we found something on Mars. A derelict ship buried under the southern ice cap. It was old, older than any of the species currently in the galaxy. Inside were blueprints, technical data, and designs for technology we could barely understand. We've been studying it ever since, the president added. Building what we could, adapting what we couldn't. Nightfall is the result. What does it do? Lisa asked quietly. It destroys planets, Dr. Yang said simply. Completely. Utterly. In a way that the galaxy hasn't seen in over 1 million years. The room was silent. Jake felt like the air had been sucked out of the chamber. A planet killer. Earth had built a planet killer. If we use this, Ambassador Clark said slowly, we violate the Accord of Ancient Stars. Every species in the galaxy will become our enemy. If we don't use it, General Carter countered, we lose everything we've built and prove that humans can be pushed around by anyone with a bigger fleet. President Foster looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. We're not going to use it. We're going to show them we have it. We'll invite the whole galaxy to a demonstration. Let them see what happens when they try to bully Earth. That's incredibly dangerous, Clark warned. Once they know we have this kind of weapon, they'll take us seriously, the president finished. For the first time since we joined the council, they'll actually have to treat us as equals. The vote was taken. The decision was made. Earth would not back down. 3 days later, Ambassador Clark sent a message to the Galactic Council. Earth would not be evacuating Tau Ceti. Instead, they invited all member species to attend a demonstration of human defensive capabilities. The location and time were provided. On the Vortok homeworld, Supreme Commander Velkoth read the message and laughed. The humans were bluffing, he was certain. They would fold when they saw his fleet arrive. It was almost sad how desperately they were trying to seem strong. He had no idea how wrong he was. The demonstration site was a distant star system called Kepler 442, chosen because it had no inhabited worlds and sat far enough from major civilizations that any accident wouldn't cause damage. Over the next 5 days, ships began arriving from across the galaxy. Admiral Chris Bennett commanded Earth's demonstration fleet from the bridge of the EDS Defiant. He was a veteran officer who had spent 20 years in space, but he had never commanded anything like this. Behind his small formation of 12, human warships hidden in quantum-fold space waited the Nightfall platform. The weapon that would change everything. Status report, he called to his crew. Lieutenant Kate Morris checked her console. She was the weapons specialist, and she had spent the last month learning every detail of the Nightfall system. Platform is holding steady in fold space. All systems are green. We can bring it through whenever you're ready, sir. How many ships have arrived? Over 800, sir. Pretty much every major species sent representatives. The Vortok brought their entire third fleet. Chris allowed himself a small smile. Good. The more who saw this, the better. On the flight deck, Captain Tyler Ross was running final checks on his fighter. He was one of Earth's best pilots, chosen to lead the escort wing that would protect the platform during the demonstration. All birds ready for launch, he reported over the comm. The alien fleets arranged themselves in a wide formation around the system. Some kept their distance, others moved closer, confident in their superior numbers and weapons. The Vortak fleet was the most aggressive, positioning their ships in a clear attack formation. Supreme Commander Velkoth's face appeared on the main view screen. His reptilian features were twisted in a sneer. This is your last chance, humans. Surrender Tau Ceti peacefully, and we will allow you to remain in the Council with minimal punishment. Continue this foolish demonstration and we will be forced to take action. Admiral Bennett looked directly at the screen. Commander Velkoth, you've come all this way. It would be a shame if you left without seeing what we invited you here for. Please direct your attention to the planet in this system's third orbit. The holographic displays throughout the gathered fleet showed a barren world. It was roughly the size of Mars, a dead ball of rock with no atmosphere and no resources. Scans confirmed there was no life of any kind. That is your demonstration? Velkoth laughed. Showing us an empty planet? Is this some kind of human joke? Watch, Bennett said calmly. Then he gave the order. Bring Nightfall through. The space behind Earth's small fleet began to distort. Reality itself seemed to fold and twist as something massive pushed through from quantum space. The alien ships immediately went to full alert as their sensors started screaming warnings. The Nightfall platform emerged into normal space like a monster rising from the deep. It was 20 kilometers long, a dark structure covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at. The patterns seemed wrong somehow, like they existed in more dimensions than the eye could process. What is that? Voices demanded across multiple channels. What have the humans built? This, Admiral Bennett announced, his voice broadcasting to every ship in the system, is the Nightfall platform. It represents humanity's answer to anyone who believes we can be threatened or bullied. What you are about to witness has not been seen in galactic space for over 1 million years. On the Defiance Bridge, Kate Morris began the activation sequence. Her hands were steady despite the sweat on her forehead. She had practiced this 100 times in simulation, but this was real. Platform is powering up, she reported. Energy readings are climbing beyond our sensor limits. The geometric patterns on Nightfall's hull began to glow. The light was a strange purple-black color that seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars rather than reflect it. Space around the platform started to bend, visible even to the naked eye. In the Vortak flagship, alarms were blaring. Supreme Commander, his science officer called out, we're detecting massive gravitational distortions. The energy output is unlike anything in our database. Velkoth stared at the human weapon with growing unease. What are they doing? Admiral Bennett's voice cut through the chaos. Firing! The platform released its weapon. It wasn't a beam of energy or a missile. It was something far stranger. A distortion in space-time itself reached across the void, connecting the platform to the distant planet in the blink of an eye. For 3 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. The gathered fleets watched their displays in confusion. Then the planet began to die. It didn't explode. That would have been understandable. Instead, it started to collapse inward. The entire world, billions of tons of rock and metal, began compressing. It was like watching a video in reverse, watching creation undo itself. The planet shrank. Smaller and smaller, the gravitational forces so intense that the very atoms were being crushed together. In less than a minute, an entire world had been reduced to a sphere of ultra-dense material no larger than a city block, hanging in space where a planet had once been. The compression created gravitational shock waves that rippled through the system. The nearby star flickered, its light dimming for a moment as space itself adjusted to what had just happened. Every ship in the assembled fleet was silent. No one spoke. No one moved. They all just stared at the small, impossibly dense sphere that had been a planet moments before. Kate Morris was shaking as she shut down the firing sequence. She had known what would happen, had seen the simulations, but the reality was so much worse. They had just erased a planet from existence. Then the communication channels exploded into chaos. Every species was shouting at once, demanding explanations, threatening war, calling for immediate action. The Vortok fleet powered up their weapons but didn't fire, frozen by fear and uncertainty. Admiral Bennett waited for the noise to die down a bit, then he spoke again. His voice was cold and clear. That weapon is currently targeting the Vortok homeworld. The coordinates are locked into the system. If any hostile action is taken against Earth, against our colonies, or against any of our ships, we will not hesitate to fire. And this is not our only platform. We have 7 more currently in quantum fold space with targeting solutions locked on the homeworlds of every major council species. The channels went completely silent. Even the Vortok stopped shouting. Furthermore, Bennett continued, Earth demands the following: full recognition of our territorial claims in the Tau Ceti system, complete voting rights in the Galactic Council, equal to any other species, and a formal apology from the Vortok Empire for their threats and attempted extortion. You can't do this, the Netheri Collective's representative finally managed to say. This violates the Accord. This weapon should not exist. And yet it does, Bennett replied. The question now is not whether we have it, but what happens next. You can accept our demands and we can all move forward as equals. Or you can try to fight us, and we'll show you exactly how serious we are about defending ourselves. Velkoth's face was pale. His species had ruled their sector of space for 5,000 years. They had crushed countless rebellions and defeated dozens of rivals, but they had never faced anything like this. You wouldn't dare, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. If you fire on our homeworld, every species in the galaxy will hunt you down. Maybe, Admiral Bennett agreed. But your world will still be gone. Your people will still be dead. And we'll take at least 7 more species with us before we fall. Is that really a trade you want to make? The Vortok Supreme Commander said nothing. There was nothing he could say. On Earth, President Foster watched the transmission with General Carter and Ambassador Clark. The demonstration had worked perfectly. Too perfectly, perhaps. They're terrified, Clark observed. Good, General Carter said. Fear is better than contempt. But President Foster wasn't so sure. Fear can turn to hate very quickly. We've made ourselves powerful, but we've also made ourselves into everyone's enemy. This is just the beginning. Back at Kepler 442, Admiral Bennett gave the order for the Nightfall platform to fold back into quantum space. As the massive weapon disappeared, leaving only the small sphere of compressed matter as evidence of what had happened, he knew that everything had changed. Earth was no longer a junior member of the Galactic Council. They were now one of the most dangerous species in known space. Whether that made them safer or just painted a bigger target on their backs remained to be seen. The fleet began to disperse, each species returning to their homeworlds to report what they had witnessed. The galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council convened 3 days after the demonstration. For the first time in 300 years, every single species representative was present. The chamber on Unity Prime Station had never been so full or so tense. Ambassador Ryan Clark walked through the corridors toward the main chamber, flanked by Commander Alex Harper, his security chief. Alex was a big man, former military who took his job of protecting Earth's representative very seriously. His hand never strayed far from his weapon. How do you think this will go? Alex asked quietly. Badly, Ryan said honestly. But we knew that was coming. Dr. Lisa Hammond was waiting for them outside the chamber entrance. She carried a datapad with technical information about the Nightfall platform. The council had demanded a full explanation of the technology, and she was there to provide it. Are you ready for this? Ryan asked her. Lisa took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. They're not going to like what I have to tell them. The 3 of them entered the chamber together. The noise hit them like a wall. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting, arguing, and demanding action. As soon as the humans appeared, the room fell silent. Every eye in the chamber turned to look at them. Ryan walked to Earth's seat and stood. He didn't wait for permission to speak. Earth didn't need permission anymore. Honored members of the council, he began. We are here to discuss the recent demonstration and Earth's demands for equal status within this body. The Netheri Collective's representative was the first to respond. Their crystalline form pulsed with angry red light. You dare speak of honor after what you have done? You have violated the most sacred law of the Accord. You possess a weapon of total destruction. This cannot be tolerated. The Krell Dominion agreed, their hive-mind voice echoing through the chamber. The human species has threatened the entire galaxy. They must surrender these weapons immediately and submit to Council oversight. This is not negotiable. Ryan remained calm. He had expected this. Let me remind the Council of recent events. The Vortok Empire demanded we abandon our colonies, homes to 3 million people. When we refused, they threatened military force. The Council voted in their favor 47-3. We were given 7 days to comply or face invasion. That is irrelevant, the Vortok representative hissed. His name was Korvan, replacing Velkoth, who had been too humiliated to attend. Territorial disputes are common. Building planet-destroying weapons is not common. Ryan's voice rose slightly. You threatened to kill millions of our people over a territorial dispute, and you call that common? You showed us that in this galaxy might makes right. Well, we listened. We learned. And now we have might of our own. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as he could. Earth has been part of this council for 32 years. In that time, we have been insulted, dismissed, and threatened. Our votes have been ignored. Our concerns have been laughed at. We have been treated like children who should be grateful just to be in the room. Because you are children, Korvan shot back. Your species has been in space for barely a century. We have ruled the stars for millennia. And yet, Ryan said quietly, in 1 century we found architect technology and made it work. In 1 century we built something that your millennia of experience never achieved. Perhaps the problem isn't that we're too young. Perhaps the problem is that you're too old. The chamber erupted in outrage. Representatives were shouting. Some were calling for Earth to be expelled. Others were demanding military action. Ryan waited for them to quiet down. Dr. Lisa Hammond stood and activated her datapad. A holographic image appeared above the chamber floor, showing the symbols and designs from the derelict ship found on Mars. This is architect technology, she announced. 15 years ago, during excavation of Mars's southern ice cap, we discovered a derelict vessel buried under 3 kilometers of ice. Carbon dating suggests it's over 1 million years old. The shouting stopped. Several of the older species representatives leaned forward, staring at the symbols with what looked like fear. We know these symbols, one of them whispered. It was a representative from a species called the Eternal Watchers, one of the oldest civilizations in known space. This is impossible. Architect technology is a myth. It was a myth, Lisa corrected. We found it. Inside the ship were complete technical specifications for propulsion systems, energy generation, and weapon platforms. We've spent 15 years reverse engineering what we could understand. The Nightfall platform is the result. She showed them more images, technical diagrams that meant nothing to most species but everything to those who had studied ancient history. The architects were the first spacefaring civilization, predating all current galactic species by hundreds of thousands of years. They built technology that we still barely understand. Korvan tried to regain control of the situation. This changes nothing. Regardless of where the technology came from, humans cannot be allowed to keep such weapons. Why not? Ryan asked. The Vortok have weapons that can destroy cities. The Netheri have weapons that can sterilize continents. The Krell have biological weapons that can wipe out entire ecosystems. Every species in this chamber has the capacity for massive destruction. The only difference is that our weapon works on a larger scale. The scale is everything, the Netheri representative shouted. You can destroy entire worlds, entire civilizations with the push of a button. And you could do the same with enough of your smaller weapons, Ryan countered. The Council has never banned weapons because of their potential for destruction. You've only banned them when they threaten your power. Well, Earth's power is now undeniable. That's what really bothers you. The argument went on for hours. Some species demanded Earth's immediate expulsion from the Council. Others suggested economic sanctions. A few even proposed a joint military action to seize the Nightfall platforms by force. That's when everything went wrong. A message came through on the emergency channel. Commander Alex Harper's face went pale as he listened to his earpiece. He leaned over to whisper to Ryan, "Sir, we have a problem. The Vortok fleet that was at the demonstration hasn't returned home. They've entered quantum fold heading toward our moon. Ryan's blood ran cold. The Vortak were trying a surprise attack, hoping to destroy at least one platform before Earth could respond. He stood quickly. This session is over. Earth is under attack. The chamber exploded with questions and denials. Corvin was shouting that Ryan was lying, that this was a human trick to avoid accountability. Ryan ignored them all and ran from the chamber with Alex and Lisa right behind him. They sprinted through the corridors to the docking bay where their ship waited. "Get us to Earth," Ryan ordered as soon as they were aboard. "Maximum speed." But even as the ship launched, he knew they would be too late. It would take hours to reach Earth. The Vortak fleet would arrive in minutes. On Earth's moon, in a hidden facility buried under the surface, technicians were detecting the incoming fleet. Admiral Chris Bennett was immediately notified. He had been stationed there specifically in case something like this happened. "How many ships?" he demanded. 300, sir. The entire Vortak Third Fleet. They'll emerge from quantum space in 4 minutes. "Activate the platform," Bennett ordered. "Full defensive protocols." The Nightfall platform that had been hidden near the moon powered up instantly. Unlike the demonstration where they had shown the weapon slowly, this time there was no performance, no drama. Just cold efficiency. When the Vortak fleet emerged from quantum space, expecting to catch Earth by surprise, they instead found themselves trapped. The Nightfall platform had created a localized space-time distortion around their exit point. 300 warships appeared right into a quantum cage. Their engines didn't work. Their weapons didn't charge. They were frozen in space, unable to move or fight or even flee. Admiral Bennett's face appeared on every Vortak ship's view screen. "Vortak fleet, you have committed an act of war against Earth. You have 30 seconds to contact your homeworld and order a full retreat of all military forces from human space. If you do not comply, I will activate the weapon currently targeting your homeworld." On the Vortak flagship, Supreme Commander Velkoth realized his terrible mistake. He had thought a surprise attack would work. He had thought Earth wouldn't have time to respond. He had been wrong about everything. "Contact the homeworld," he said, his voice hollow. "Order all forces to stand down." 23 seconds later, the order went out across all Vortak military channels. Every ship, every base, every soldier was told to immediately cease all hostile actions against Earth. Admiral Bennett watched the confirmation come through, then deactivated the quantum cage. The Vortak ships were suddenly free to move again. "Leave," Bennett said simply, "and if you ever threaten Earth again, there won't be a warning." The Vortak fleet fled, jumping back into quantum space as fast as their engines could manage. Back on Unity Prime, news of the failed attack spread through the Council within minutes. The chamber was in chaos. Some species were demanding that the Vortak be punished for breaking the peace. Others were terrified of what Earth might do next. When Ryan Clark's ship finally arrived hours later, he returned to the chamber to find a very different mood than when he had left. The vote took place 1 week after the Vortak's failed attack. The Galactic Council chamber was quiet this time. None of the shouting and chaos from before. Every representative knew what was at stake. Ambassador Ryan Clark stood at Earth's position, waiting. He had barely slept in the past 7 days, spending every moment in negotiations and backroom meetings. Some species were willing to talk, others refused to even look at him. The council speaker, an ancient being from a species called the First Ones, called the chamber to order. "We are here to vote on the restructuring of the Galactic Council and Earth's petition for full membership status. All representatives will now cast their votes." The voting was done electronically, but the results were displayed for everyone to see. Ryan watched the numbers climb. Species after species voted in favor. Some did it because they feared Earth's weapons. Others did it because they saw an opportunity to break the power of the older species who had dominated the council for so long. When the final count appeared, Ryan felt something release in his chest that he hadn't realized he'd been holding. 73 in favor, 27 against. Earth had won. The council speaker announced the result formally. The motion passes. Earth is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council, including executive committee status and veto power. Additionally, the Accord of Ancient Stars is amended to include a prohibition against threatening any species with total annihilation. Ryan sat down slowly. They had done it. After 32 years of being treated like children, Earth was finally an equal. But as he looked around the chamber at the faces of the other representatives, He saw no friendship there. Only fear and resentment. They had won respect, but they had made enemies doing it. The Vortok representative Korvan approached him after the session ended. The Vortok Empire acknowledges Earth's new status, he said stiffly. We are prepared to pay reparations for our attempted attack. How much? Ryan asked. 5 billion credits, and we will formally recognize all human territorial claims. It was a massive sum, enough to fund Earth's expansion for a decade. Ryan nodded. Accepted. Korvan leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. But do not think this makes us friends, human. You have humiliated my people. That is not something we forget easily. Neither do we, Ryan replied calmly. Remember that next time you consider threatening us. 3 months passed. Earth used the Vortok reparations to expand their colonial efforts and build more defensive stations. The Nightfall platforms remained active, orbiting human worlds like silent guardians. President Amanda Foster sat in her office in Geneva, reviewing reports from across human space. Everything looked good on paper. Their economy was growing, their military was stronger than ever, and the other galactic species were giving them a wide berth. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. General Ben Carter arrived for their scheduled meeting, along with Ambassador Clark, who had returned from the council. Dr. Sophie Yang joined them via video link from her research facility on Mars. We have a problem, President Foster said without preamble. We've won respect through fear, but that's not sustainable long term. What do you mean? General Carter asked. I mean that right now the galaxy sees us as dangerous. They're afraid to attack us, but they're also working on ways to counter us. Intelligence reports suggest at least 6 major species have started their own research programs into architect technology. Let them try, Carter said. It took us 15 years to build the Nightfall platforms, and we had a complete blueprint. Without that, they're decades away from anything comparable. Maybe, President Foster agreed. But what happens in those decades? Do we just sit here with our weapons pointed at everyone, waiting for someone to build something that can threaten us back? That's not a future I want for humanity. Ambassador Clark nodded. She's right. We can't rule through intimidation forever. Eventually, the other species will find a way to unite against us, or they'll develop their own planet killers. We need allies, not just enemies who are temporarily too scared to fight us. Dr. Yang spoke up from the screen. I think I have an idea. What if we share some of the architect technology with other species? The room went silent. General Carter looked like she had suggested giving away Earth itself. Absolutely not, he said. That technology is our only advantage. Not the weapons, Sophie clarified, but the other systems. The architect ship had propulsion technology that's twice as efficient as anything the galaxy currently uses. They had energy generation that could solve resource problems for dozens of species. If we shared that, we'd be helping the galaxy instead of just threatening it. Why would we give up our advantage? Carter demanded. Because it's not really an advantage, President Foster said slowly, seeing where Sophie was going. The weapons keep us safe in the short term, but they make us isolated. If we help other species advance, they become partners instead of potential enemies. And partners are worth more than terrified neighbors, Clark added. If we can show the galaxy that Earth wants cooperation, not domination, we might actually build something lasting. The discussion went on for hours. General Carter was against the idea, believing it gave away too much. But eventually, even he had to admit that their current strategy had serious long-term problems. President Foster made the decision. We'll start small. Offer propulsion technology to 3 species, ones that have been neutral or friendly toward us. If it works, we expand the program. The first species they approached was the Tellarian Federation, a collection of small worlds that had voted in favor of Earth's council membership. Their representative was cautious but interested. Why would you help us? Ambassador Clark was asked. What do you want in return? Partnership, Ryan said honestly. Right now, Earth is powerful but alone. We'd rather have friends than enemies. We're offering this technology freely, with no strings attached. Build better ships, improve your worlds, help your people. All we ask is that you remember who helped you when you needed it. The Tellarians accepted. Within 2 months, they had built 3 ships using the new propulsion systems. The improvement was dramatic. Their ships could now travel twice as far in half the time. News spread quickly through the galaxy. Soon other species were approaching Earth, asking if they too could have access to the technology. President Foster was careful about who they worked with, choosing species that showed genuine interest in cooperation rather than just wanting free technology. Not everyone was happy about this development. The older, more powerful species saw Earth's technology sharing as a threat to their dominance. If smaller species gained access to better technology, the traditional power structure would change. The Neteri Collective sent a formal protest to the Council, claiming that Earth was destabilizing the galactic order. The Krell Dominion agreed, saying that technology should only be shared through official council channels. But Earth had voting power now, and they used it. When the Neteri proposed restrictions on technology sharing, Earth vetoed it. The motion died immediately. A year after the demonstration at Kepler 442, the galaxy looked very different. Earth had gone from being a weak junior member to one of the Council's most influential species. They had formal alliances with 12 different civilizations, all of whom had benefited from shared technology. The Nightfall platforms were still active, still capable of destroying worlds, but Earth had only mentioned them once in the past 12 months. The threat was always there, unspoken but understood. Commander Jake Morrison, promoted to Admiral after the demonstration, stood on the bridge of humanity's new flagship, the EDS Resolute. The ship was twice the size of the old Horizon's Edge, equipped with the best technology Earth could build. He was leading a joint expedition with the Talarians and 2 other allied species to explore a distant sector where more architect ruins might exist. It was exactly the kind of cooperative mission that President Foster had envisioned. "Admiral, we're approaching the target system," his navigation officer reported. Jake smiled. A year ago, he had been a simple commander on a diplomatic vessel, watching Earth get pushed around by every species with a bigger fleet. Now he commanded the flagship of a major galactic power, leading an alliance of species on a scientific mission. "Take us in," he ordered. "Let's see what else the architects left for us to find." The galaxy was still dangerous, still full of species that didn't like or trust humanity. But at least now, when Earth spoke, everyone listened. And slowly, carefully, they were turning fear into respect and respect into genuine cooperation. It wasn't perfect. There were still threats, still species that plotted against them. But Earth had proven that humanity could adapt, could survive, and could thrive even in a galaxy that didn't want them. The Nightfall platforms orbited silently above human worlds, a reminder of what Earth could do if threatened. But they were no longer the only thing that defined humanity's place in the stars. Earth had power, yes, but they were learning to use it wisely. 5 years had passed since the demonstration at Kepler 442. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in his quarters aboard the EDS Resolute, looking at an old photograph of himself as a young officer. He barely recognized that person anymore. So much had changed. The ship was currently in orbit around New Horizon, one of the colonies in the Tau Ceti system that had started this whole situation. The colony had grown massively in 5 years, now home to over 8 million people. Cities sprawled across 2 continents, and farms produced enough food to export to other human worlds. "Admiral, you're needed on the bridge," his communications officer called. Jake made his way through the corridors. The Resolute was the pride of Earth's fleet, but it wasn't alone anymore. Humanity now operated over 200 warships, and their allies added another 300 to the combined fleet. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted dramatically. On the bridge, Dr. Lisa Hammond was waiting. She was older now, with gray streaking through her hair, but her mind was as sharp as ever. She had spent the last 5 years leading research teams studying architect technology across a dozen different worlds. "We found something," she said, excitement in her voice. "Something big." She pulled up a holographic map showing a star system at the edge of known space. This system matches descriptions from the architect ship's database. Our long-range scans detected massive energy signatures coming from the 4th planet. "What kind of signatures?" Jake asked. "The same kind we get from Nightfall platforms, but much, much larger." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "How much larger?" "About 1,000 times more powerful than our platforms," Lisa said quietly. "Whatever is there, it makes our weapons look like toys." The expedition to investigate took 3 weeks to organize. The Resolute led a small fleet of 6 ships, including vessels from the Talarian Federation and 2 other allied species. President Amanda Foster had insisted on a joint mission, saying it was important to show that Earth didn't keep secrets from their friends anymore. The journey took another 2 weeks through quantum space. When they finally arrived at the target system, what they found took everyone's breath away. The fourth planet was covered in structures, not buildings exactly, but geometric patterns similar to those on the Nightfall platforms, except these covered the entire surface. The planet itself appeared to be one massive machine. "My God," someone whispered on the bridge. "What is this place?" Lisa was already analyzing the data streaming in from their sensors. "It's a constructor facility. The architects built their weapons here. This is where the Nightfall technology came from." "Is it still active?" Jake asked. "Partially. Some systems are running on automatic. Others appear to be in standby mode, waiting for someone to activate them." The science teams spent days studying the planet from orbit before anyone suggested going down to the surface. When they finally did, Jake insisted on being part of the first landing party. The surface was like walking through a dream. Everything was perfectly preserved despite sitting abandoned for over 1,000,000 years. Massive fabrication facilities stood ready to build weapons and ships. Data storage systems contained technical information that would take humanity centuries to fully understand. And in the center of the main complex, they found something unexpected. A message. It was written in multiple languages, including several that the architect ship had taught Earth to translate. The message was simple but profound. "To those who find this place, you have proven yourselves worthy by discovering our technology and using it with restraint. Many species have found our weapons over the millennia. Most destroyed themselves with them. You did not. This facility is now yours to use or destroy as you see fit. Choose wisely, for the power here could save the galaxy or end it. The choice, as always, belongs to the living." Jake stood in front of the message for a long time, thinking about what it meant. The architects had left these weapons scattered across the galaxy like tests. Species that used them poorly destroyed themselves. Species that showed restraint were rewarded with more knowledge. "What do we do with this?" Lisa asked. "We don't decide alone," Jake said. "This is too important for one species to control." Back on Earth, President Foster called an emergency meeting of the Council. For the first time, she invited representatives to Earth itself, to the very facility where the decision to build the Nightfall platforms had been made 5 years ago. The meeting was tense. Some species demanded that the architect facility be destroyed, too dangerous to allow anyone to access. Others wanted it sealed and guarded, preserved but unused. A few suggested that Earth, having found it, had the right to keep it. Ambassador Ryan Clark stood to speak. He was older now too, lines around his eyes from years of difficult negotiations, but he had become one of the most respected voices in the Council. 5 years ago, he began, Earth revealed that we possessed planet-killing weapons. We did it because we were desperate, because we had been pushed into a corner with no other options. We used fear to gain respect. He looked around the room at the assembled representatives. But in the years since, we've learned something important. Fear is not the same as trust. Power is not the same as wisdom. We have the ability to destroy worlds, but that doesn't mean we should. "What are you proposing?" the Nethari representative asked. "Joint oversight. The architect facility becomes neutral territory, managed by a committee representing all major galactic civilizations. Any technology developed there is shared equally. No single species gets an advantage." "Earth would give up exclusive access?" someone asked, surprised. "Yes," President Foster said, standing next to Clark, "because we've learned that being powerful and alone is not as valuable as being strong together. We're not asking you to trust us, we're asking you to work with us." The debate went on for days, but eventually an agreement was reached. The architect facility would be placed under joint control, with representatives from 20 different species managing research and development. Any weapons technology found there would be strictly controlled and only used for defensive purposes. The Nightfall platforms that Earth had built would remain active, but Earth committed to never building more without Council approval. In exchange, the other major species agreed to similar restrictions on their own weapons development. It wasn't a perfect solution. There were still species that didn't trust Earth, still politicians who schemed and plotted, but it was a step toward something better than the galaxy had known before. Admiral Jake Morrison watched from the Resolute's bridge as the first joint research teams landed on the architect world. Ships from a dozen different species orbited together, sharing data and working toward common goals. Do you think it will last? His first officer asked. The cooperation, I mean. I don't know, Jake admitted. Maybe, maybe not. But at least we're trying. 6 months later, Jake received an unusual message. It was from a species he had never heard of before. One that wasn't part of the Galactic Council. They claimed to be observers, watchers who had existed in the shadows of galactic civilization for millions of years. The message asked him to meet them at specific coordinates, alone. Jake knew it could be a trap. But something about the message felt important, so he took a small personal shuttle and went. The meeting place was empty space between stars, far from any inhabited system. When he arrived, a ship was waiting. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, made of materials that seemed to shift and change as he looked at them. A being appeared on his view screen. It was humanoid but ancient, its features hard to distinguish as if it existed partially out of phase with normal space. Admiral Morrison, it said. We are the Watchers. We were the students of the architects long ago. The architects are gone, Jake said. Yes. They chose to leave this galaxy to move beyond physical form entirely. But before they left, they created tests. The weapons, the facilities, the technology they scattered across the stars. All of it was designed to see which species would rise to take their place. Jake felt his hands grip the shuttle controls tighter. Take their place as what? As guardians of this galaxy. The architects believed that eventually, a species would arise that combined power with wisdom, strength with compassion. They hoped that species would guide the younger civilizations, help them avoid the mistakes that destroyed so many others. And you think that's humanity? Jake asked skeptically. We think it could be, the Watcher said. You found their weapons and didn't destroy yourselves. You gained power and chose to share it. You learned restraint when you could have chosen domination. These are the qualities the architects valued. But we're not ready for something like that, Jake protested. We've been in space for barely a century. The architects were young once too. Every species starts somewhere. The question is not whether you're ready now, but whether you have the potential to become ready. The Watcher's image began to fade. We will be watching, Admiral Morrison. The galaxy will face challenges in the coming years. How humanity responds to them will determine whether the architects chose wisely in leaving their legacy for you to find. The ship disappeared, leaving Jake alone in the darkness between stars. When he returned to the Resolute and reported the encounter, no one quite knew what to make of it. President Foster ordered the conversation.